Nostalgia, I found you when I heard the sweet sound of the ones who I once knew so well. In a voice memo from years ago, we were laughing about some nonsense. Oh, how I miss those friends. Circumstances made it so that I'll never see their faces, except for on the internet.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. Good Wednesday. Yeah, we're here today. It's just going to be me, Steve, and Katie. Sadly, we are grapeless today.
The start of the show is gone.
Yes.
R.I.P.
I don't know how we'll survive.
Not dead or anything, but...
No, she's not. No. But today is a Sprints and Shoptalk, which means, well, I'm hosting, which means it's a Sprints and Shoptalk, which means that we have a theme to discuss today. And typically when I do Sprints and Shoptalk, we are kind of discussing a just overall element about writing. And today's theme is troubleshooting. And so actually what we're going to do is the first question that I'm going to put up is for Stieg and Katie. And we're going to do that before the first sprint. And then after the first sprint, the next question I'm going to, because the first question is more like just a general kind of Sprints and Shoptalk topic. But then after the first sprint, I actually would like to invite you guys to let's do some troubleshooting live. If you're having any issues with your story or with your writing routine or anything, let's troubleshoot. So are you guys ready to dive into the first question?
Us specifically, or the royal we?
The royal we. I mean, first though, I'll say hello to people who have arrived. Inkse is here. Nia Moon. Hello, Malin. Hello, Lisa. Hi, Wendy. Bombastis. Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Vicky.
Hi, Nikki. Everybody is hanging. Malin wanted to know, what is this layout?
I created it, and I'll stand by it.
Yeah, graphic design is our passion. So we've got this one. We've got this one. We've got this one.
My fave, honestly.
This is pretty good, actually. Yeah.
This is great.
Steve, can we make a heart? Oh, can I make a heart with both of you?
Oh, what is this?
Shoulder.
Ooh. Where
What?
do you go?
Oh.
There goes my arm, so I have to be this way. There you go.
Oh my gosh, you guys. Wait, stop. Wait, come over a bit.
Yeah, there you go.
You're making a set of
Take a
balls.
screenshot, y'all.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, so that was fun.
We have been joined
By a doggo.
Mr. Bear. He's going to help us troubleshoot today.
Oh,
Well,
and
for a little bit until we get
Lisa is
Little Man.
really into your mushroom lamp and would like to know where you got it.
I bought it online, and I instantly regret it.
It's
so
so
if you want a
cute.
Kelly, you can come and get it. Might be
None of
a long
them
way
know.
from Appalachia to Western Norway, but yeah, I have that one, and you can't see it, but under that cap, there's a tiny one. I like them, but not for me. So
I really like it. Okay.
well, that's funny because now what you said when I bought them, Wallace, you're like, okay.
I have no memory of this conversation, and I don't hold myself accountable for who I
Previous statements.
for who I was in the springtime. I'm sorry. That was a different version of this girl. Okay. So our first question, our first kind of general question, and the chat is free to answer this.
Can I just a little addendum to the mushroom talk? Sorry,
Yeah.
Wallace.
Okay.
I have been looking at a lamp that is mushroom shaped, but it's not because this is giving mushroom, and I like it, but I don't want literal mushroom. So I've been looking at it's a carved jade lamp shaped like a mushroom, and I think that's more what I wanted.
So it'll look kind of like a penis?
No, unless you have experience with mushroom penises. I don't know, Kat.
I
Okay.
don't know.
Anyway.
Sometimes it just looks like that.
Let's get into Sprints and
Depends
Shoptalk.
on what. Okay.
So the first question.
If you're brave, that's my answer, Katie. If you're brave, sorry.
Calm down. It's time for Sprints and Shoptalk. Okay. Okay. So this is a very general question. I just kind of want to let you interpret it as you will. And the question is, what is your strategy for troubleshooting a story? Feel free to give us examples in the past. If you have something that you're struggling with now, hold on to that because we can discuss that after the first sprint. Stig.
My strategy for troubleshooting, Wallace, esteemed judge and honored guests of this chat, is to complain about any given topic,
Mhm.
my group chat, and then usually Wallace, but sometimes Katie will be like, okay, but how would if you just X, Y, and Z, like stop whining and do something.
Mm.
And then
That was great yesterday.
and then I promptly ignore them, but I do perceive them.
I was going to ask, since your strategy is to outsource your troubleshooting, has that been successful for you in the past? And if it has, can you give an example?
It has not. But also it has.
Mm. What do you mean by that?
What I mean that sometimes it has, and then sometimes it has not.
Give us examples.
Mm-hmm.
Examples is, for example, Grape. Finish that story or I'll cut you with a knife. I ignore it. And then sometimes Wallace go like, but what if you did this? And I'm like, that's a great idea, Wallace. I will do that. Thank you so much. And then I implement it. No,
thank you for this exact answer, Stig, because the reason I wanted to ask this question was to create the base for the chat to realize that this is a safe space to, okay, especially since Grape is here, you will not be threatened. That I love a troubleshoot. We instead of being the troublemakers, we really should have been troubleshooters because
more like the troubleshooters.
I love, as Katie sometimes points out, I love to ignore my own problems by focusing on other people's problems. So,
and I just generally love to ignore.
And we're working on that.
Yeah.
Katie, how about you? Would you like to kind of act as a reference towards just in general? Yeah. What is your general strategy for troubleshooting and how has it gone for you in the past?
Oh, do you have a comment, Bear?
Or, talk to your dog. That's fine.
Sorry. He's
Whatever.
So cute. Oh, you can't see him because it's so dark.
Nope. Yeah, he blends right into that wood in the background.
I see his soulful eyes.
Soulful eyes. Okay, so my strategy for troubleshooting is first when I realize I have a problem with a story, I feel bad about it. I stare at a wall for a while. And then inevitably, I send Wallace a message that is something along the lines of, I need help. I'm going to throw myself off a bridge because I hate that I can't get this. So that's usually my strategy. And then the troublemakers plus like Miranda, depends on the story too. But mostly Wallace will, pull me back from the edge and be like, okay, it's not impossible to solve this problem that you have. Wallace loves a brainstorm. I love a brainstorm. One of our favorite phrases is spaghetti at the wall. And I love throwing spaghetti at a wall. Like there's nothing better than throwing spaghetti at a fucking wall and seeing what sticks. So truly outsourcing is my troubleshooting strategy, much like Stig and you and Devasia.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think it's a really, not to be biased, but I think it's a really good strategy because you are, and this is a general you, right? When you're in a problem sometimes, especially in a creative problem, you're so close to it that having somebody on the outside looking at it and thinking, well, here's this other angle, here's this other attempt of like, here's a situation that you could try out. And sometimes they're really bizarre and sometimes they end up working, even the really bizarre ones. Katie, I don't want to like take away from what we could talk about later, but, and this isn't a read, but you're just in a very tumultuous situation. So I figure you have a lot of things that need to be troubleshot. So would you be okay, as an example, giving us the results of the experiment we did last night?
Oh.
Would you first like to give a breakdown of the experiment and then give us the results?
Yes. So yeah, last night, as always, I was complaining because I love to complain. to my besties. And basically, I'm trying, for anyone who doesn't know, if you're not an avid fan of mine, which, what are you doing? I'm kidding. I am going to try to write a fifth manuscript before I turn 25. And for this, I decided that I wanted to kind of have like all these ideas that I wanted to write. And so I narrowed it down and I decided instead of writing a fantasy book, even though I really would like to write a fantasy book, I don't think it's good for me to write a fantasy book and like so fast. I need to take my time with it. But like this year has just been a lot of struggle to like actually get something finished and like actually like get through something, and a lot of like flippy flopping. So basically I decided that I wanted to write a royalty romance novel. Big surprise. Because it's me. Lisa, my birthday is December 4th. So I have October and November and like a little bit of leeway into December. And so because it's me, the royalty romance, the royal family that I've come up with has 6 siblings. And so I was looking at like what I had down for each of them and like what their stories were. And I narrowed it down to 2. And you would think to yourself, well, Katie, just write the one that seems like it would go first. The 2 that I picked happen at the same time, basically, like 2 different portions of like they take place in separate areas, but like at the same time period as each other because the inciting incident is the same. And so complaining about this to Wallace, and I was like, well, I thought, if I worked on the story and I worked on the characters and stuff, and like I got through all this stuff, maybe like one would shout out to me like, this is the first one, do this one first, the other one will be second. Yeah, no, that hasn't happened, unfortunately. So Wallace was like, well,
this was spaghetti at the wall.
Spaghetti at the wall. And something you got to know about me, I am a witchy girly. I love witchy woohoo, dreams and, praying and, crystals. I have all my crystals here. There's a clear course for you. And these are recently recharged by the light of the super blue moon. Very important to note. And so Wallace was like, what if you wrote down the couple names on like a piece of paper and then you put them under your pillow and then you slept on top of them and see if you like dreamed of one, or if one like came, like you woke up like knowing what it was. And if not, you take them back out and you hold them and see which one speaks to you. And then that's the one you should write. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Can't hurt anyone. Hello, bear. So I did that basically. And I like put my crystals on top of them while I was like waiting to go to bed. Put them under my bed. Did not dream of any of them. But I did realize, and this is where I will need help troubleshooting. I ended up picking the card of the one that I was more that I wanted to write originally, that like was the one that I wanted to write, which tells me I should write that one. But I also have been talking a lot recently about marketability and which one I should like getting a book query ready. And the other one is exponentially more marketable and like queryable than the one that I want to write.
Interesting. Okay. So we're going to get a little bit of a preview of how after the first sprint, this is going to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a banner up on the screen of the different strategies that I have used to troubleshoot my own stories and other people's stories. And as you consider what thing you want to troubleshoot today, also consider what strategy you want to use. So for an example, I haven't come up with the banner yet, but logic, right? So goal-oriented logic is how I will phrase it, right? So with that one, if we were analyzing this situation from a goal-oriented logic perspective, we think about, well, what are your ultimate goals in this situation? Because you have 2 conflicting goals. You have the goal of, they're not conflicting, but they can create conflicting answers. You have the goal of 5 before 25, and then you have the goal of writing a marketable, publishable book. And the correct answer for what book to write might be different based off of which goal you prioritize. Because if the goal is 5 before 25, maybe we lean more towards the book that you're feeling interest in, because that spark with you're a spark writer, or you're an anytime writer, but you write very quickly when you have a spark. And since you want to get this draft in before your 25th birthday, you're looking for a spark to write quickly. But yeah, so that's goal-oriented logic. Then we have health-oriented logic when we consider what's like healthy, long-term, best option. There's emotional-oriented logic, and then there is woo-woo. And we're not even saying that's oriented towards logic but sometimes the woo-woo provides results. So I'll put that banner up as we sprint. Get the thing that you want to troubleshoot in your head and also consider what troubleshooting strategy you want to have us to be focusing on, because it's not just going to be me troubleshooting. The three of us today, we are a panel. We are a troubleshooting panel. So get your juices flowing. And actually, I'm going to open it up to you two. Do we want to have people actually putting in their stories during the sprint so you guys can review during the sprint and already start brainstorming? Or would you rather we wait until after the sprint for the comments to start asking their questions?
I think having them put them in during the sprint, it'll also help, I think, with like timing wise, like figuring out how much time we have for each person.
Yeah. So
we know how many we have to get through, basically.
Yes. So, I mean, there are 13 people watching. I figure in between the first and second sprint, we can do 6 people. And in between the second sprint and the second and third sprint, we can do another 6 people, and then we can end the stream. Does that sound okay with you guys? And then, yeah, I think that's legitimate. And if you want to like stake a claim on a specific thing, you can just put it on the private chat of, oh, hey, Stieg says, I really want to focus on Mullins. I have a really great idea for Mullin for troubleshooting, or that sort of thing. Yeah, so I'm going to first go and just review quickly, not quickly, I'm going to give you guys all the love and attention you deserve, the answers that people have been saying for what is their strategy for troubleshooting the story, and then we're going to jump into the first sprint. All right, so Vicky says, mostly just ruminate. And you know what? Sometimes you got to ruminate. Sometimes you got to marinate. Sometimes you got to cook. Lisa says, my strategy for troubleshooting is just giving up for an undetermined amount of time and start an entirely new story. It is not successful, but it does lead to some interesting new stories. Are these strategies or are these habits? I'm gonna push back a little bit on that. Are these strategies or are these habits? And I'm saying that both to Lisa and to Stieg and Katie, because I mean, granted, outsourcing I think is a legitimate strategy. That's what we're all doing today, is we'll all be outsourcing. But staring at a wall, giving up, like, let's be honest. These are not strategies. They're funny little jokes, haha, but they're not strategies. Inksai says, in the past, I've taken a few days break from writing to do something else creative like art or baking, and think about the why of struggling with specific scenes or chapters. This is a good strategy. And actually, Lisa, I would encourage you to reframe, because I think moving away from something that is giving you a problem is a strategy, but you're telling yourself you have wow, I'm in major therapist mode right now. No, I'm not. This is not professional therapeutic advice.
This is not professional. We are just 3 bitches on the internet.
We're just 3 idiots on the internet. But I would encourage you, Lisa, to not tell yourself that you're giving up, to tell yourself that you're taking an intentional break, because that's an important narrative for you to have in your head. If you're constantly being like, oh, well, I'm just going to give up, then you're telling yourself, I'm the kind of person who gives up. And I don't know if that's a healthy narrative for you to foster in your brain.
Also, just as someone who does tend to move to different stories, I find that moving to different stories and writing those stories sometimes can help when you go back to other stories, because you've learned and grown from writing a new story, and you might be able to fix that previous problem that you had. So I think going in and writing other stories is not necessarily a bad habit. I mean, it can be if you're using it as like, you never finish a story. That's your goal, is to finish a story.
Why are you pointing at me?
He's working.
I know, but
someone who's actively working.
I'm just saying, we have had many conversations where you're like, should I just give up the story and write a new one? And my advice is always, is your goal to just write things that make you happy, or is your goal to finish a story? And both of those things are valid. Neither thing is like good or bad. It's just a goal. And that's what I always try to like tell people, is like, if your goal is to write a story and like find your story you're passionate about, moving from story to story is not a bad idea. If you're trying to finish a story, different thing. But I will say, writing new stories will help you learn if you ever go back.
I love that. All right. Yes, great advice from Inksteady. Malin says, my strategy is usually to go back to making a structure/plot plan because most of my issues are when I run out of plan stuff and I'm back to pure pantsing being a headlights writer. I just had this exact same experience yesterday, Malin. I was supposed to be working on a chapter, and Katie can attest, I was like a deer in the headlights, or deer without headlights. And
With just antlers.
I was just antlers. And I just felt like I couldn't do it. And then I had a couple drinks and we sat down and I outlined the chapter with Katie and Devesha, and now I feel way more prepared. So I think that this is a great strategy, that strategy of taking a step back, not necessarily taking a break, but going to a higher level. You're not in the woods, you're looking at a map of the woods, you're drawing out the map of the woods. That is a fantastic strategy. How does that work for you, Malin? Do you find that that typically then gets you back to a place where you're comfortable writing? Yeah. I mean, I hear this. I think we should fight against that habit, but I do hear it because I'm the person who does it all the time. Okay, continued. If I have a really hard time with writing, if the above strategy didn't work, I'll consult one of my core 3. Also, as a Pisces, it's such a delight to ignore my own writing problems and help others with theirs occasionally. I'll do that as a way of escapism. Honestly, in a weird way, I really relate to this because sometimes I'll be talking with someone and I'll give them a piece of advice that pops into my brain. And then I'm like, ooh, that was a good little nugget. I'm just going to store that away for myself later. So,
yep.
Yeah. Bombastus says, if it's writer's block, I try to write through it. Interesting. If I'm still stuck, I talk it out with someone, and most of the time talking out loud helps get the wheels rolling. Absolutely. If all else fails, I found Post-its work. Can you go into what you mean by that? Post-its, just like, is that Kanban boarding with Post-its or just writing, brain dumping on a Post-it? Also, when you have writer's block, you say, I try to write through it. Do you have a specific strategy in that moment of sitting down and forcing yourself to write through it? One that I've been trying recently, I think it's something I borrowed from maybe Neil Gaiman. And by say borrowed, I mean, I think I saw it in a masterclass ad. And I was like, I think I saw it in a masterclass ad, and I think it was Neil Gaiman who said, your options are either stare at a wall or write, and you have nothing else. You cannot do anything else. And it's like 2 hours a day. Those are your 2 options. You don't have to write, but the only other thing you can do is stare at a wall. And of course, nobody wants to stare at a wall for 2 hours. So you're like, okay, I'm going to start writing, right? Bombastus, do you have a way that you keep yourself accountable in that sense of when you try to write through it? Let us know. Okay, Malin says, if my issues are after draft 0 is complete, then my strategy is to bounce ideas off my critique partners in crime and chat about it to people to see if something comes out of talking about it. I love it. I love that that's the general strategy that it seems a lot of people here take. Because I really think, I used to think that writing was a very isolationist habit, but now I think that writing in its best form is a very collaborative habit. So I think this is a great strategy. Okay, we did that. Wendy says, I find talking to someone about the problem often reveals the solution. Sometimes the person I'm talking to even has some input. Good for them. And we had Laura show up. We had Flora and the Fawn show up. We had Sasha show up. Hi, guys. Hi again. Laura says, get other people's eyes on it. Bounce ideas off them. Read comp titles to study them. Maybe pay for a developmental editor. Ooh, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
The comp titles one is also a good,
a
good strategy as well. Seeing how other people deal with the same things you're writing.
And Lisa, this is also very true. Sasha says, I explain the problem to my partner and he helps me strategize. Sometimes just saying the problem out loud helps. Plus, he's my muse, so it always helps. Ugh, I wish I had a muse. That's so romantic.
It is really romantic. That's so cute.
Nikki says, I re-outline, I ruminate, I read or watch other things that might be similar to ways or that feel inspiring, or talk it out, write it out, whatever works. Whatever work. Well, Nikki's Fox says, talking about my story is probably the most effective way for me to make progress in its planning. but my goal is to finish it, and I fall into that trap of being unable to write because the rules. Can you
Because I
explain?
know the rules.
I know the rules. Will you expand on this? What do you mean?
Yeah.
What rules do you like? The way I'm interpreting this right now is that you say, like, my goal is to finish it, and I fall into the trap of being unable to write because I know the rules.
Do you think it's the new rules?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm wondering if this is in relation to the previous comment of like wanting to talk about it, but maybe Vicky Fox, there are rules that like you're not supposed to talk about your story or something like that. If that's a rule, we don't follow that here, just so you know.
Yeah.
Or like
One,
rules as
don't
in,
pick
like,
up the phone.
rules as in like writing rule, like
Mm.
craft genre rules, you know?
Yeah, maybe you're stuck in this idea of what you should write or how you should write it rather than what feels natural to you.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So let's know.
Yeah. Mon says it works quite well, that her strategy of stepping back towards the outline. But sometimes the hurdle is bigger. Like my current issue was with wider structure problems because I tried following Romancing the Beat, but ended up with only 40% romance and 60% plot. So now I'm looking back through the Save the Cat lens to try and fix things before plunging back into writing the zero draft. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Mullen, for that expansion. Nikki says, my biggest troubleshooting need is to learn how to make goals and not feel like they're demands. I'm going to star this, Nikki. Or actually, Nikki, will you just comment this again during the sprint? Because I think this is one we could focus on. I think this is a great... Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, Wallace gives friends great writing advice. Also Wallace, you genius, you cannot apply this to your own writing. That is so true. If I don't call myself a genius every at least once a day, then where has the day gone? That's a wasted day at that point.
Valid.
We love it.
Vicky says basically saying they could stare at the wall at all the time because they're super cool. They're teal. And you know what? I had the bright pink walls as a girl, but I did wish I could have been a teal girly, I have to say, when I was a teenager. Sasha being so wholesome, and I look back at my partner and go, nope, not my muse.
There's something also a little bit romantic about that too.
Also true. Bombassa says, in answer to my question for expansion, for writer's block, I give myself a full day to write it out. That typically means trying scenes I'm not confident that are going to work because as much as I don't want to admit it, you need to see what's not working to know where to go from there. And yes, it is either write or do nothing. Okay, this is a strategy I've never tried, and I think this is brilliant. This idea of giving yourself a full day of spaghetti at the wall, of like, okay, I'm stuck here. I'm not sure how this scene should go. I'm going to write it 3 separate ways. And that's my goal for the day. And that's because I think I get into this headspace when I'm writing. And that was one of the reasons I was struggling yesterday, was this idea of I knew I needed to make all these fixes and I wasn't sure how to organically have it feel in the plot as opposed to just turning out into a chapter that's just there for exposition. And I think that would have been really interesting if I'd kind of given myself permission to write it in 3 separate ways without feeling like those 2 ways that don't get used are wasted. I think that this is a really interesting strategy, and it's one that I think I might incorporate. I don't know. Have either of you guys tried something like this? Katie, you seemed like you were nodding.
I have in the past, sort of, but yeah, I think it is funny. I've never done it like when I've been like writing like a serious novel or like being serious about it. But I've done it when I've written fan fiction. And it's not that I'll write the same scene multiple times or different ways. I'll write it from different perspectives. I'm not like where I will be like when I wrote Cruel Summer, I started writing a scene from one character's perspective, and I was like, oh, this just doesn't feel right. And so I was like, oh well, I'll switch it to that one, see if that one still feels wrong, and if that still feels wrong, I'll figure out a different way to do it. And usually it's I need to switch POV for a certain scene, especially within romance. So that's what I did, but this is also a great technique.
Yeah, that is brilliant. And then just to say what the end of their sentence is, they say to see what's not working, to know where to go from there. And yes, it is either write or do nothing. And I think as painful as it is, that is a really important not dedication, discipline act, you know, of if you really want to force yourself to write, it's either write or do nothing.
Yep.
Let's see. So Vicky was expanding on my question about what rules and says, as in show don't tell, active versus passive, progress and payoff. I'm stuck in the planning because drafting is so hard when I write and know everything that's wrong with it. Yeah.
This is me, Vicky. We are the same. So,
Any advice for Vicky?
Yeah.
I mean, if she finds out or they find out, let me know, because I'm still stuck in this mindset.
But you're writing.
Yeah,
You're not
you're
writing
writing though.
Yeah, but I still know it's wrong.
But you're still writing.
Occasionally, it's going very slow, as Grape, pointed out yesterday.
Yeah, but you've still written what? 8 chapters, 7 chapters, 8 chapters?
Yeah, you're gonna make your
3
quarter
months.
2 goal. You're gonna make your quarter 2 goal. Stieg, you are comparing yourself to Katie. That is super unfair.
We all are comparing ourselves
No.
to Katie. She's the
Don't do it.
golden
I
standard.
don't compare myself to Katie. That would be so
certainly not the
toxic.
golden paper
I
standard.
call my books decade books, and that is a good, mindset to be in. Be like, this book is going to take 10 years to write, and that's okay. Especially with you, where it's a passion, it's a hobby. You have this incredible career that you do. You don't need to be grinding the way that Katie does, and also inherently, that's just not your writing style, right? And so if it's what I was talking about with Lisa. It's about those mental narratives that we create for ourselves. If you're constantly being like, oh, I'm writing so slow. Dude, you wrote 8 chapters in 3 months compared to Miss Decade book over here. You are a Katie, right? You're a whippersnapper. Like, you're so fast.
You're not decade book. Like, that's not just factually not true.
But I mean, I've got some books that I write a little quicker, and then I have some books that are my decade books because they're real projects that are really deep for my soul, and they require a ton of research and a ton of emotional connection and just a ton of, building and analyzing of every single sentence and chapter structure, etc. Right? And I feel like those are the kind of books that you're working on, right? Those books that you're really deeply connected with. Not to say that I don't give a crap about Tabitho and stuff, but it's a different mindset I'm in as I'm writing them, right? So, compared to Project HR, you are writing Project Sunflower way faster than I'm writing Project HR. Way faster.
Yes. But again, everyone else don't have to compare themselves, but I do.
No, stop it. Even when you say that as a joke, your brain is interpreting that. Stop it.
I don't think I'm saying it as a joke, though, but I do need to unlearn it.
Mm-hmm. And what's the strategy for unlearning it?
I don't know. Let's see what the audience thinks.
Well, I mean,
Not saying it, for one thing, would be a great place to start.
And maybe every single day having a moment where you say the opposite of that, where you take a moment to check in with yourself and be so proud of yourself, of the goals that you are meeting, the things that you are accomplishing, and have, even if it's, just 3 sentences you repeat every single day for 1 month, maybe that should be the strategy that I stamp onto you, even before the first sprint. At the next Sprints and Shoptalk, I'm going to check in with you for 1 month. You know what? After the first sprint, we're going to figure out what your 3 sentences are. And then every single day, you take a moment where you say those 3 sentences to yourself. And then we can check in at the end of the month to see how you're feeling about your progress in writing. That's
I appreciate this solution to a problem I didn't pose.
Well, we see it as a problem, so we're going to fix it anyway.
Look, it's spaghetti at the wall. And if you say, no, that's not going to work for me, you don't need to accept it. Mm-hmm. All right. So let's see. I think there's some great conversation happening in the chat, but we've been going for over half an hour. So I think we are going, reframe the narrative. Exactly. This is Nikki's good advice. We're having great conversations in the chat. I think we're going to jump into the first sprint. And at a certain point in the first sprint, I'll put up the banner. Again, if you arrived after I did a little bit of an explanation of what's going on today, after this first sprint, we don't really have a specific question. The idea is you put forward something that you would like to be troubleshot. And we will, yes, Violet. Why do this to me when I literally say we're about to go into a sprint, woman? Anyway.
Because it annoys you, probably.
Fair enough. And then I'll also put up the different types of strategies that you can ask. If you want one that's logical, goal-oriented strategy, if you want one that's more witchy woo-woo, like I did with Katie, I'll put up those options so you can think about that during the sprint. And yeah, today we're gooping it.
Yes. Oh, good.
Mhm.
Row your paddleboard gently across the lake.
Merrily, merrily, merrily. Like,
All right.
About cakes.
Yep. There we go.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, before we start, I'm just gonna highlight this comment from Malin. Stieg, write down on a piece of paper all those inside voice notes, all the negative bits you're thinking about your writing, then read it like a friend tells you these and how you answer them. It's a good little way, a kind of dissociation technique. All right. Happy sprinting, everybody.
Thank you, Wallace.
Goop, 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 gooping across the lake.
Little Kay's looking at me because the break timer interrupted her nap. Oh, and also because I'm eating something, I just realized that's probably why she's actually looking at me. Okay. How was that sprint? Steve, how'd you do?
I ate some din-dins, and then I did some note-takings for this upcoming session.
Nice.
And then I listened to, because the intro song that Katie put on the spring timer reminds me of Pierre by that lady. Do you remember that song that was huge on TikTok? And
I love that song.
that beat just fucks me up. So I just listened to that on repeat for 4 times.
Nice.
And then one of my favorite reactors posted his Guts reaction to Guts, obviously.
Oh, yes.
So I'm going to watch that, bookmark that. What more did I do? Texted my brother because he was snapping me, a little snappy of my nephew. Was drained from childcare, being in kindergarten all day. So it was just on the couch watching telly with his little jukebox. It was super cute. Yeah, that's honestly just what I did.
Nice.
Nice.
Thank you.
What about you, Katie?
I updated my vlog.
I saw.
This vlog coming out soon.
Is that who you were talking to? I thought you were on the phone call with someone.
Yeah.
I was like,
No,
why?
I was-
No, she had her vlog face on.
Yeah, I was vlogging. Because I am working on the kingdom and politics stuff, so I also was doing some research on modern monarchies.
Hmm.
Might I inspire you to look to Norway?
Oh, maybe. You'd have to tell me more about Norway's monarchy system.
It's one of the, I think, strongest in Scandinavia. Or strongest, quote unquote. I don't know. I don't really believe in the monarchy. But I think in terms, not strongest, but it has less scandals than the other monarchies of Northern Europe.
I need more scandal, though.
Yeah, I think Katie
Then you
wants
should look to the Swedish monarchy.
Oh!
Those children cannot
That's a
behave.
Some big tea. Also, though,
One of them is a model. Like, they just denied one of the prince's 50th birthday celebration. I don't know why. Or Luxembourg. Oh, did they have royalty?
Mm.
I mean, obviously the English. But that's, or Belgium. I think English is less scandalous and just not knowing how to behave in public, which is obviously a scandal, but I like a kind of juicy story scandal, like intrigue, more than I like, they're a pedophile or like they're racist.
Ew. Yeah, none of that.
None of that.
I do, however, will say, I am going to look up all these monarchies and scandals and stuff so I can pull from it. I will say, though, I'm leaning towards going, oh my God.
This is the drama I live for. Illegitimate daughter, sign me up.
Fuck me up with that.
Children, no sir.
Love that. I do need to have more of a monarchy that would have political power, because arranged marriages is the whole inciting incident of 3 of the books. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
I don't think any sort of modern monarchies would have that much political.
Yeah, but it's in a fantasy world.
So inspiration. Yeah.
I was looking for inspiration. But if you think my monarchy system looks suspiciously like Genovia, mind your business.
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't. Mind your business.
Guys, sorry.
That movie is so wild to me.
So wild.
It makes no sense because they're like, oh yeah, this country ceased to exist if you don't become Christian. And for, the biggest one is the mother, an artsy lady, living in a 3-story house in upper whatever.
San Francisco?
No way,
how do you afford that?
Yeah, and also the inaugural ball is at the embassy in San Francisco. Why isn't they celebrating the history of Genovia in Genovia? Why is it happening in the embassy in San Francisco?
Okay, someone needs to rewatch The Princess Diaries. That was not her inaugural ball. That was just her kind of coming out party. Her that wasn't her inaugural ball. Her inaugural ball is in Genovia when she becomes the queen.
Oh, well, I just watched that movie and was like, this does not check out factually. But then again,
it's been a while since I've watched it, but it is on my inspiration things I'm going to be watching and looking into stuff. So yeah.
Also, I read. Well, I've seen actually a couple of posts of Princess she left the royal family to marry a commoner. I think that's really cute. This is a sad video, you're saying about your family.
You are a little.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Not important.
Maybe move your mic a little closer.
It's just a guy. Hit him with the car.
Perfect.
Excellent. And I packed. I'm getting on a plane today.
Woo!
What's new? Yeah, so I was in the process of packing and going over everybody's thoughts and their requests for troubleshooting. So, normally I ask you guys questions. So what I will be asking of you is, Steve, you can go first. Pick one of the things that you want to help troubleshoot.
Speaking of Darien headlight.
You said you took notes.
I did take notes, but yes. I wrote down 2 points that I kind of like troubleshoot. One is consistency, and the other is saying goodbye to my inner editor. Because I think saying goodbye to my inner editor is like it like trickles into a lot of different aspects of writing that I struggle with. So that's like maybe that's the one to take home. So yes, I propose that for the esteemed council and honored guests.
Katie? Anything else you think?
I can like expand if you want to,
Please
Catherine.
expand.
What I did was challenges I face in my writing, : skip number 1, not relevant for this topic. Number 2, saying goodbye to my inner editor, period. M-. I keep second guessing my writing and I have a hard time with my penmanship, apparently. What does that say? And I have a hard time keeping on when I know I make mistakes as I write. And then that prompts me to be like, maybe I should outline some more, or like maybe I should send this to someone so they can read it, or maybe I should go back and edit, or maybe I shouldn't write at all because it's all just a scam, truly. And I would also like to request a goal-oriented answer because I work best with detailed plans.
Okay.
Perfect.
Does that answer your questions, Wallace?
No, I had no questions.
Does that answer the prompt? Is that what I ask?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
turning the page, and I'm ready for advice, Catherine.
Yeah, I
Come on,
want
hit me.
Katie to be able to take this, but I'm gonna just insert myself a little bit. That I really do think it comes
Title of my sex tape.
a little bit to your inner narrative. It kind of sounds like that's what you're kind of fighting against.
Yeah, my inner editor.
Right, 100%. And so I'm just gonna be out here just quietly championing the original plot of the movie that I had before the first sprint, which is the idea of coming up with almost a positive affirmation for yourself to repeat for a month and just see how that works with, like, if it can rewire your brain at all. But anyway, I'll leave it to Katie to.
Okay.
Wallace comes up with the plans, but I'll leave it to Katie.
Yeah.
Wallace's plan is great.
I'm gonna eat my pumpkin bread. You guys do your thing.
Okay. She's like, I set this up. Y'all just take it away. Okay, so goal-oriented. I think my first thought, though, is in order to... Part of my brain wants to say heal your inner critic.
Heal?
Heal your inner critic, being
heal my
kinder
inner
to
child?
yourself. Your inner child, that's what I was thinking of.
I don't want to heal him. I want him fired by the time I come back from lunch.
Ooh, that's lunch is soon for me.
Lunch happened 5 hours and 11 minutes ago, so...
Okay, well, he's still there. That's a problem.
Lunch tomorrow.
Someone fired that manager who was supposed to fire the editor.
But also, like, heal the inner critic is a valid, I think, maybe also a healthier question mark, roundabout way to getting to the same goal.
Yeah, because I feel like where does the inner critic come from? I think is my ultimate question that when you have this problem you have to ask. Like, is your inner critic coming from a place where you want to criticize yourself and like tear down yourself for not writing well enough? Or because your inner critic's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, it will help you improve your writing over time. Like, your inner critic is great when you're reading books and stories and you're like, I hate how this author did this. I don't want to do it like that. Or I would have done it this way. And those are lessons you can take and learn from and put into your own writing. Or you can give to other people, when you help critique partner and stuff. Because, you want your inner critic to help, like, to actually be working. It's just he's too derogatory now and he's tearing you down as a person I feel
It's turned into grape.
I don't feel like I could say. I'm not going to comment on that. This is a great point, Nikki. Yeah, your inner critic can be constructive, and so I think because this is an issue we all run into, where writing is so personal that like oftentimes when there is criticism and there is critique, it feels personal, and like often like because when you started, you know, you were like, you know, do I go back and do I outline? Do I go and talk to someone else? Do I go and do these things? Those are productive, but then it like slippery slope into maybe I should just stop writing forever because I suck at this. And like that is not where you want to go. So I don't know. I think there's multiple ways you could go with this. Like you could do Wallace's route where like I think that's a great way of trying to heal your inner critic from internally, like from like a like personal level, like could also help you with like other things that your inner critic is critical about, you know, like other things about yourself, not necessarily writing related.
What are you thinking of?
I mean, I don't know about you, but my inner critic is always critiquing like how my body looks or how like I look now as opposed to before and stuff. And like, you know, critiquing, you know, how much productivity I have and stuff. And like, those are not great things to be critiquing about myself. And so I'm trying to limit those things. But like when it comes to writing, I guess it will, and this is so wishy-washy, but like it depends on the day, you know.
Well,
like
it's Wednesday, so
how confident do you feel today? Like, you know, is your inner critic trying to tear you down so you don't write, or is your inner critic like actually like looking at your novel and being like, there is something wrong that I need to figure out, you know, because you could like be writing something and you're like, you know, oh, this doesn't feel right, like I should go back to the beginning and like redo this or like restart. So is your inner critic telling you to restart because everything sucks and you hate it and it just for no reason, or is it because it actually feels wrong, which I know is really difficult to
how do I differentiate between those two though? Do you have any thoughts, prayers, hopes?
I have lots of prayers for you. I certainly do, always.
Thank you.
Thoughts, prayers, sorrows.
Sorrows, prayers, sorrows. Like, how do you do it? Because you're also very critical of your own writing.
I am. I tend to look at like why am I writing today? So I write for two different reasons. One is because I'd like to make this a job. And two is because I love writing. Like there's a reason I write so much, is because this is like not just like what I want to be my career, but because I love it. And so sometimes if I'm feeling really critical, I'll like sit down and I'll like think, I'll be like, okay, what is my actual goal for today? Like, am I trying to write to further my career goal, or am I trying to write just to escape from something, just because I don't want to deal with like thinking about things? And so, you know, if my goal for today is, you know, I'm looking like if I'm in a headspace where I'm like, okay, like I can receive feedback, I want to work towards my goal of becoming a career writer, I'll be like, okay, like I'll let my inner critic in. If I'm just looking for a release or an escape, or just like to enjoy the act of writing, I'll try to ignore my inner critic or be like, okay, we're not going to criticize anything today. Nothing. I don't care if you fucking spelled the wrong. Like, that's not what this is about. Like, this is just purely about the joy of writing, basically. And like whatever your joy in writing is. And that's where it gets a little tricky. And I'm not sure quite I'm the person to answer this, because you'd be like, the joy of writing is editing it to pieces. And that's not helpful.
Stig, you say you want a goal-oriented answer, and I want to break that down a little bit. Do you want a goal-oriented answer in that you want goals to work towards, to like small, like digestible goals to work towards to address your inner critic and your inner editor? Or do you want to take a moment to reflect on your greater goals and how reorienting your headspace about your inner critic can help you get to those goals? What did you have in mind?
I am most interested in strategies for dealing with the inner critic or
Mhm.
the inner editor. I'm pretty happy with my overall goal. Well, that's a lie, but that's the story for another time.
Sure.
So I'm looking for like specifically a strategy for dealing with, the inner critic.
Right. So, not to be repetitive on Maine, but very sincerely, how do you feel about doing that month-long experiment of the affirmations? I like try and be sincere. I know affirmations, a lot of people are like, blah, affirmations, but like with recognizing that one of your main issues is negative self-talk, I really actually think that the exercise of like 30 seconds a day of positive self-talk could be very helpful, or at least it's an interesting experiment. But how do you feel about it? And is it something that you think you would actually do, or would you need accountability, or do you just like have zero interest in it?
Um, I'm not really, well, I don't, believer is not the word. I had never tried it before, so why not? I'm willing to give it a go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I have a. Oh, here.
Go for
Sorry, I have a spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
Hit
Well,
me.
I have a question first before I get to my
Okay.
spaghetti. Does it?
Yes, I will marry you.
Yay! I get to become a Norwegian citizen.
I get to become an American citizen.
Win-win. A win is a win.
A win is a win is a win.
It's a win.
Your question, Your Honor.
My question: is it easier or is it more helpful to hear positive self-talk from your friends or from yourself?
From myself, because I never
Okay.
believe my friends. I will believe every critic, but I won't believe any like recognition or accolades or like praise. Because I'm just like,
Wait,
my mom is fake.
You believe critics? Then I will
Yeah.
say this, Stig, you write way too fast. Stig, you are being too productive on your story. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed for you how productive you've been this year compared to other years. Like,
And see, because I
You don't
know
have a
this
life?
is the joke, so this isn't working. It's like setting goals for myself isn't working because I don't have like that external pressure. Like I know you just, it's a bit, so it isn't working. But I believe like everything critical ever said about me, and then I have a hard time like acknowledging any praise or any like
okay.
positive talk. So I think the call needs to come from inside the house, being my brain.
That's fair. I will say though, for anyone else who is like, I listen to my friends better,
Mhm.
my suggestion, if that had been yours, was we could send you voice memos
Mhm.
and you could have them on your phone, that whenever you have those thoughts, you could listen to them. And like anyone else can do this, like get your friends or your family or your critique partner, your muse, your, whatever, to send you what you need to hear. And then that could help also. Like if you feel goofy about saying it about yourself, like if you want someone else to say about you, there you go. If you want me to do it, let me know. I'll send you a voice memo.
Yeah.
No, I think I would rather die.
Yeah. So
Which is fair. It's totally fair.
Then this is the real moment. I think what we could do collectively is come up with the 3 things Stig says to himself at least once a day from this day until the next Sprints and Shoptalk, and that are actively like not affirmations, but just statements, right? If we want to reframe the idea, if we want to get out of the like new age element of it, we're not doing affirmations. We're just doing restructuring statements for you to say to yourself, to hopefully over the course of a month kind of dull the voice of the inner critic. So what, if you're willing to share, what do you think from a creative standpoint, if you want to share non-creative, that's fine. But just because we're focusing on creative, you don't need to get too personal. You can just share the creative elements. What do you think? What do you think are your 3 most common creative critiques that you give to yourself?
A big one is you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
And then also, but that's in the same vein though. It's just a lot of the same. So 3 different things.
They don't need to be different. You can just say the three critiques, because this isn't a test. This isn't the right answer, right? We're just trying to address actual things that happen to you. So even if the 3 thoughts that are most common for you are all of the same vein, those are the 3 thoughts we want to focus on, because those are the 3 thoughts you're having. Yeah. So the first is, you said you don't know what you're doing. What's the next one?
I mean, but we all do this though. Like, you're a fraud.
You're a fraud.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the third one is you'll never publish this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's I think the big like you'll never get there, basically.
Okay. So I don't know if like we want to focus on like I don't think the right strategy is to be like, I'm definitely going to publish this, right? Because that's more of an affirmation, right? That's more of a trying to
Manifestation,
right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think for the and 100%, upfront, it's very likely the first couple days the first week even, you're not going to believe the things that we say anyway, that you're saying to yourself. But I do want to focus on statements of facts because eventually your logical mind, right now, the reason you wouldn't believe certain things is because you're self-critical, right? The reason you don't believe your friends when we say things to you is because of that critical element. But if we pick facts that are true, eventually your logical mind will be like acknowledging their reality, and hopefully within 30 days, that will be your narrative that you can follow. And again, this is a total experiment. I have not done any psychological research. I'm like sitting here and I'm being like, no, I'm speaking with such authority. This is 100% an experiment. I have no idea if this is going to work.
3 idiots on the internet.
100%.
Just keep that in mind, everyone.
For legal reasons, this is a joke.
Right. So, one of the things that, spaghetti at the wall moment, let me know how you feel about, is maybe one of the facts is a statement of gratitude of like, I'm so lucky to be able to write if I want to write. That's a fact, right? There's so many people out there who are incapable of it, whether or not just because they have zero time, they don't have a support system, they don't have an idea. Do you think that is something that you could tell yourself every day? Is that reminder of you're so lucky to write?
Yes.
Okay. And we don't if we come up with multiple and you like one better than that, we can absolutely switch it out. But yeah, you can write that down if you want. Can you have one?
I do. I have several. Because I wrote down so I can visualize better these, because I think I agree with you that it should be statements of fact. So for the you don't know what you're doing, I have something like, I get to learn how to do things. I get to learn how to write X, Y, and Z. I get to learn because I don't know what I'm doing. Great. You get to learn how. You get to do these things. Like, it's a fun time to learn. Like, I think just because you don't know how to do something isn't necessarily a bad thing, but like our inner critic turns it into a bad thing of like, you don't know what you're doing, so therefore you're fucked, you're stupid, like you're terrible. Like, but saying I get to learn, or like something along those lines, I'm not sure if that's the best way, as I think a good one for that one. And then also for the you'll never publish this, I'm still working on You're a Fraud because I struggle with that one too. You'll never publish this. I believe in telling this story.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
I love writing this story because just like publishing is a goal, but ultimately, why are you trying to publish? You're not trying to publish to make money.
Right.
You've said that before. If that's changed, let me know.
It has not.
Great. So like, I believe in telling this story. I love writing the story. I love getting to like write these characters, or I love and you can make it personal to Project Sunflower. I love getting to work through issues. Like, I love or I believe in telling queer stories. Like, that's what's really important. Like, what is important to you about this story? Because the whole goal is not to like just publish it. It's to like reach out to an audience, and like coming back to why you're trying to reach that audience, I think is more productive than just thinking about the whole like publishing side of it. Because like, you could like post snippets online, or like talk about like read stuff like, or put like make it like a newsletter and share, your chapters with people. And like, that's publishing, but not in the way that we usually think of it. And it'll still be getting your story to people. So, those are the ones I have.
And for the You're a Fraud, I think a potentially very simple statement of fact is, I write, so I'm a writer. Just that very simple statement. I write, so I'm a writer.
Okay, that's a lot of good suggestions. Thank you.
And now let's talk strategy to see you actually implementing this. So you're definitely not, we've talked in the past that you're not a reward type of person, especially if it's like up to you to give yourself that reward. you're also not really, you're not a carrot person. You're also not really a stick person either, though, because a lot of times from a spite perspective, like, if I say, well, if you don't do this, then you can't come to the next 4 trouble streams, you'll be like, well, F you too. Like,
I didn't want to come to those trouble streams anyway.
Ever the contrarian. My apologies.
Right. So I think, is just the idea of that at the next Sprints and Shop Talk, the first thing I'm going to do is ask you to check in with us over this. Do you think that is enough? Do you need, from my end, or Katie's end, do you need one of us to reach out to you and be like, hey, did you say your 3 statements today? Or, what are you thinking in terms of strategy to implement the strategy for the strategy?
The strategy for the strategy. I think definitely like having to just talk about it next streams, Sprints and Shop Talk, would be mortifying if I failed.
Okay.
So I think that adds a lot of external pressure.
Okay.
Unless I just delete the account, then we never have to go live again. But
I will say what I was thinking of when we were talking about this is that you are somewhat forgetful of things that are not immediately in front of you. Something I have seen done a lot of times. I didn't come up with this. But if you write them down on like sticky notes and then like put them at different places in your apartment, like on your monitor, on your bath, in your mirror,
like
on like
your stove because you cook for yourself. Yeah,
like just like little reminders of like the little things you can say, just to remind you of like, or like it doesn't even have to be the affirmations, or the sayings. You just be like, it could just be like, do your three facts today, bitch. Like, remember your 3 facts, like something like that. To like keep it like front and center, so you're not like, your brain doesn't go, I'm just gonna forget this because I love being intercritical.
And
that's fair.
And again, I think it's also important to have that, like, the strategy for when it feels like it's not working. You've been doing it for 2 weeks and every day you say these things and then your inner critic is still there. I think the goal can be do it once a day, but I think a side goal can be any time you have that inner critical thought, kind of do a reset of, no, I'm a writer, so I write. I'm so lucky to get to write, and I'm passionate about telling the story. That's a great idea.
This is a great one. I keep affirmations on my lock screen too.
Oh, but I keep this one and I don't want to change it.
You don't want to change it. It's just an that's good. Yeah, so I think, and then and also just the reminder that it takes time, right? It takes time for a thought pattern to take hold. And so even if it's been 2 weeks and you're still getting a lot of that critical self-talk and you don't really buy the things that these 3 statements, just have a kind of secret 4th statement says it takes time to get better.
Thank you. That's a great
also
solution.
I think this is a great thing. Sorry, I just want to bring this up too. Is some things I've seen myself do, despite it being really counterproductive, is after accepting help, saying things are getting better so it doesn't seem like help was wasted on me.
Right.
Because God forbid I need more help, I guess.
Right.
This is also, I think, having strategies as well to like not lie to ourselves, like to, because it is really hard to like admit that like the things that you're doing aren't working. When people sink so much time into this, and like it is time freely sank in my at least for me. Like I will talk to you about this shit for every day for the rest of our lives if you want. Like like that's just it's something I'm I want to help my friends, but it is hard, and I know from a me perspective to continue to ask for help. So I was like, is there a way we can figure out a strategy, and maybe like for Vicky as well, of like how to counteract this feeling as well.
Yeah. And, just because we're giving this as a recommendation to Stieg, if, please feel free if you're, in the chat and you think you resonate with Stieg's issue. And if this is an interesting experiment too, as a scientist, I'm always out there to say the more data, the better we can understand the situation. So if we have more people doing this experiment, then at the start of next month's Shop Talk, we can have more data points about whether or not it was successful, and it can be fine-tuned. So Excellent. Stieg, how are you feeling?
I am excited.
Yeah?
Ooh.
Let's do it.
All right. So here's what I'm thinking in terms of timing and stuff, because I do have a plane to catch, unfortunately. I think we're going to move on to Katie and your issue and whatever it might be. I don't need to have anything troubleshotted today. So then we'll sprint again. And then I kind of hate to do this, but again, I really want to give people really in-depth attention because I think that's really important. I don't normally on Sprints and Shop Talk, I can just read a comment and move on. That's just not going to work for this. So what do we think about after the next sprint, each of us picking one person, one comment that you want to come up with, you want to lead the discussion on their troubleshooting. And so we'll do 3 people after this next sprint. How do you feel about that? Is that okay?
Mhm.
And again, I'm really sorry to anybody who we don't get to. If we do this as a Sprints and Shop Talk topic again, I'll pick it on a day when I'm not traveling. So that way we can really get to everybody.
Mhm.
But yeah. All right. So Katie, take it away. And Stieg, you're going to be kind of running the spaghetti at the wall brain base for her troubleshooting. So just keep that in mind.
God rest your soul, Katie. God rest your soul. Katie, what's your problem?
Okay.
What's cooking?
So
What's crack-a-lacking?
there's a lot crack-a-lacking, not much cooking.
Okay, well, I love wine and cheese, so, and crackers.
Charcuterie.
So.
Okay, so my creative issue is that I am struggling, as always, and you know what? You're the perfect person to help me with this, I think. As someone who doesn't have many projects.
It's because I'm dumb, but go
No.
on.
I have too many projects.
Wait, pause. Stieg, I want you to say your 3 things right now.
No,
Yep. Yes, please.
it was a joke.
No, I understand that. But that's the thing is that's the negative self-talk and the pattern of behavior, right? Please say your 3 things right now.
Wallace.
Please. It would have been done if you'd just done it already. Like, it would be over by now.
Well, I write, so I am a writer.
Mhm.
And I get to learn about writing, which is fun, because I love learning shit, and that's actually true. And I believe in telling the story.
Thank you. All right, continue.
It's going to be a very long answer if I have to do that every time I talk about
Yep.
it.
Yes, exactly. So keep that in mind.
I'm a people pleaser, so this works, Wallace.
Thank you. I'm very pleased. I really am.
Yeah.
You can see it. Okay, so my problem is I have too many projects I want to write. I have a problem with prioritizing and figuring out how I want to have my priorities. And I have conflicting goals. So I have a goal to be a published writer, be traditionally published. I have a goal to write books that mean a lot to me. 99% of the time, they overlap. I am getting in my head because I have 2 ideas for 2 books. One, I am excited to write, but not as excited as the other one. But that one is much more marketable than the one that I am like really itching to write. So I know the more marketable one should be the first book in the series and should be the one that I write. But I want to write the other one.
Okay. My initial thoughts is that obviously no words written are wasted because you still learn and you still grow as a writer. My second thought is that and this is just me putting a horse in your mouth. That's not the What's that called?
A horse before the
Putting-
cart? Horse before the cart? Foot in the mouth?
Putting a horse in your mouth? That's not it.
Mm-mm.
Straight from the horse's mouth? Is that
Oh,
what
straight
you're
from the horse's mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, that was confusion.
Yeah.
But Katie, you've said on many occasions that your dream, and I like capital D dream, is that you want to be a published author.
Mhm.
And I think also that you, as Wallace said earlier, you need a spark to write. So my question is, how unpublishable do you think that spark project is of yours? That's my first question.
I don't I think I am basing off the fact that it'll be unpublishable or less marketable and less publishable, because I do not know of, I mean, and maybe this is just because I haven't researched it enough, any really popular books, romance books, that have polyamory as the relationship.
What's that? Iron Widow? That's a
It's not a
huge.
romance.
Well, and it could be a niche though, like an up and coming.
I mean, you don't have to have it like. I mean, you're just looking for books with poly relationship, because your romance could be like, because you know how a blurb is like, yeah, it's like this and that. So
Yeah.
you know, the romance could be this, and then the that is the polyamorous relationship. And I think also I don't read a lot of romance novels, so I don't know, but I'm sure there's some like poly books out there in the romance genre.
Oh my god, if people know of any, please recommend. I would honestly love to read polyromances. So please recommend.
Yeah. And all,
But
like,
is a marketability issue just that it's a poly relationship?
a poly relationship, and also has a trans main character, which I do think, I mean, just agents and, you know, in general, and publishers are less likely to pick up on a debut. And also, they oftentimes probably will be looking for own voices, which I am not an own voices. I am not trans.
Is the
the
trans
book is not
character your main character?
yes, and the book isn't about him being trans, but he is
Mm-hmm.
trans. Like, that's just a fact. And like,
I can see that being an issue, but also
Mhm.
Cemetery Boys, isn't that a trans character? So you have like a comp title there.
But is that
eventually.
own voices? That might
yes,
be.
it is.
I think it's own voice, yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, I agree. First of all, I agree with Molly. It's a gap in the market.
Mhm.
I think there's a market for it, definitely, and I also think that as long as the story is not about a person's experience in a certain
Mhm.
category, then it's fine for people of not that category to write it. Like, you know, straight people write gay characters, and gay characters write straight people. I mean, actually, I don't know a single person who writes a gay person who writes straight characters. So, but I think that there is a market for it. I also think that as long as the story is not a trans experience, then you know that wouldn't be a marketability or own voice issue. Saying this as a person who is not trans.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Oh, sorry.
I also think that you as a writer will not be able to stick to a project that you're not passionate about.
Yeah.
So
But I am
also,
passionate about the other one.
is your goal like even like as Violet says, hybrid could be an option?
I have considered it. Yes. I've considered it more and more. I think more, especially as I like look at how the traditional publishing market and world has changed coming out of COVID. I mean, you see, and like, again, the chances of writing a self-published book, becoming super, super, super like viral, and then getting signed by a traditional publisher are like slim to none.
Mhm.
Like, so
You should
slim.
not base your career on that. Yes,
Exactly. And I don't try to. That's why I'm hesitant, because I think my reasoning for like wanting to like go towards, or like even considering being more of a self-published author, are because of those success stories. And so I am wary of myself thinking and like really, really, really deeply like going for it of self-publishing, because of my because my expectations would be not where they should be.
I don't think. Yeah, I think you should just put that in a chest and lock it.
Yeah.
Because 2 out of how many self-published novels goes viral?
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a very livable or attainable goal. Also, I prefer to set goals that you can actually control, and you can't control whether or not you go viral.
Exactly.
So I think you're like, if your big goal is to get published, and your big goal is also to get published with books that you're passionate about, then obviously you should write the book you're passionate about. You know, will it work out? Who knows? But you know, if you won't know if you don't try, at least.
Yeah.
And overall, I think having another book in the back catalog is good for like eventually when you get published. So
That
I
is
think,
true.
I see no downsides with this.
And I also, I think, like, as we've talked about it, I've also, just because I write a really marketable book with like a marketable hook and like a marketable, it's,
There's no guarantee for it being sold.
exactly. Just because I write an MF romance that has things that are marketable doesn't mean that a publisher is going to want it anyway, so.
So my advice. Oh, I forgot to ask, like, what kind of goal or orientation you're looking for.
Really any of them. I think it's
Okay.
difficult for me, not self-care, because the self-care would be like, take a break, bitch, and that's just not, I mean, and like the self-care is harder for me because like the self-care for me is like writing, because I am obsessed with it. It's like the only thing I want to do. I think it's between creative and goal-oriented, creatively and goal-oriented.
Then for goal orientation, I think that your goal is to be a published author, traditionally published author. I think, there's no guarantee that either book will sell. So write the one you're passionate about, because I know that you will write an excellent book when you're passionate about it. But I also know that you will absolutely crumble in self-despair if you write something that you're not passionate about. Because you need that drive and you need that spark to continue the story. And, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the way you kind of crash when you crash is that you'll just jump between a billion projects until you find that spark again. And then you jump on that spark. And I think if you're feeling that spark now, that's kind of your inner brain telling you, as opposed to your outer brain, telling you that, I want to write this book. And I think that you want to write that book. And I think that if you don't write that book, but write the one you perceive as more marketable, you will just keep thinking about it while you write this book.
That's true.
Yeah. And there's no like saying that you can't write this book, try to queer with it. Eventually, not eventually, what's that term? You might not get it published or might not sell it. You might not get an agent on it, but then you can always write that next book and then that might get agented or not. There's no guarantee.
Also, I think it says a lot that our witchy woo woo experiment led you to the book you were more interested in.
Yeah.
I know you asked for the more like logical oriented, but do you have any interest in pulling a tarot card now that you're more like, now that we're more solidifying your working with this book?
I will always pull a tarot card.
Yeah.
That's why I keep them on my desk over here.
There's some poly suggestions in the comment.
Ooh, yes.
Froggy. I love
to the rescue.
That you're here on the first time on the stream. First of all, how did you find us? We are so like
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry, first of all. But also welcome, but also how are you here? Thank you. And also iconic that your first comment is dropping some polyrex.
Yes.
You are an inherent member of this community. Thank you so much. Hunger Pangs by Joy Demora. It's excellent, though it is self-pub, so that doesn't help with the trap issue, but it helps my desire to read it. So thank you very much.
And mine too, because I'm also not just looking for comp titles, but I am not in a polyamorous relationship. I would love to read other books and stuff. And I have been looking up there's specifically a girl on TikTok who's in a polyamorous relationship, and listening to her TikToks and listening to her talk about being in a polyamorous relationship has been really helpful because I believe strongly in doing a lot of research if you're writing about things that are not you've experienced.
This cover. I love it.
Ooh, that's hot. Fun. Oh my gosh.
Love the colors.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, I'm so interested. Anyway, so I will take any of the recs about, polyamorous relationships, trans characters, queer characters, anything.
Yeah. I hope that message found you well, Kitty. Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any elaborations? Do you have any, what is it called when you put an asterisk? A footnote.
A footnote? No, I just want to say I feel a lot better about talking about it like this, because I know I get way too in my head about traditional publishing and wanting to be published and trying to figure out what's most marketable for that. And
I also think you a little bit are struggling to even though we've done all these things to commit to a choice, I think you're struggling to commit to a choice. So can you in this moment live on stream commit and say the manuscript I'm going to try and write before I turn 25 is this poly modern day fantasy romance novel.
Okay. I commit. Well, first of all, let me say, if I don't commit,
This is you.
No.
Like, okay.
No, I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
Because I can say till I'm blue in the face. Oh, I commit. What's my punishment if I don't actually commit?
Do you want a punishment? Because like my thing is, it's more of just like getting you to acknowledge out loud that you've made your choice. So that way,
I mean, I made an entire video about how I was going to write the dragon book.
Right.
And what am I not writing?
Because as Steve said, you were in your ping pong phase, but you found something that you're sparking with, but you're like trying to convince yourself out of it. And so if you say out loud that way, sorry, my brain just glitched. If you say that, yes, I've made my choice. Anytime your brain starts to go, you, like Steve, you have this statement of fact. I've made my choice. I'm working on this book. I've made my choice.
Okay.
Oh my God. Laura, this is iconic behavior. Laura just messaged you a list of 15 polyamorous books with trans characters, Katie. How did you do that so fast?
How did you do it so fast?
The devil works hard, but Laura Nettles owns
works
51%
so well.
of that company.
Also, thank you, Froggy, for this information. That is very helpful. Oh, Vicky found us through Grape. Sorry that she's not here. You're stuck with us.
So sorry for your loss. But yeah, I had a thought and then it left my brain.
I'm sorry. I was talking over you.
I wasn't talking at all, so you wasn't. But yeah, I think also in terms of like strategies, like your birthday is so close, so the return on investment for this book, like there's only reward. There's no risks. Like if you finish this book by December 4th, then you get to write whatever other book you want to write.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to think about this. But I think you should commit live on main to this project.
Yeah.
Okay. Katie Ann writes, writer of Scribbles, that's me, will be writing for the next 2.5 months-ish. Excuse me, stop digging.
Katie, focus.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's fine. Focus.
Will be writing my royalty romance that has a throuple, lots of art references, a trans character, lots of other things that I'm forgetting now, because I am passionate about that project. It's the project I want to write.
Mm-hmm.
It is the project that feels good, and it is the project that I feel the most spark for.
Mm-hmm. And you've made your choice.
I have made my choice.
Excellent.
If you need some reference to like how you want to incorporate the art, then Brittany Broski has a lot of like art videos where she goes in depth on art periods and artists and like art
Brittany
pieces.
Broski? Wow.
Yeah.
Kombucha Girl?
Kombucha Girl. Her channel, she has like an art series where the latest one was so fucking good. Oh, it was like 10 out of 10. But she's done one on Gustav Klimt that I like. She did one on the soup cans, and then she looks at it in like a cultural context. Like what did it mean at the time? Like what came before and what came after? And it's just really fun. And if you want to kind of get into that headspace and see how you can incorporate art into your book as like a set piece, basically, then I recommend checking out our channel, and you can try and see if you can somehow transfer that to your own work.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
Hello?
Hello? Love this.
I was like, sorry, I was having a moment where I'm like, what happens if I share the screen while we're in this?
Pops up an extra window where Katie is.
Does it?
Oh.
Should we sprint like this, you guys?
Absolutely not.
No way.
Why not? Okay, well, anyway, we can talk about it.
'Cause I had fun.
So
I'm going to pull a tarot card now.
Pull a tarot card. Hold on. I want to get you front and center, though, babe. Okay. Katie's pulling a tarot card.
Okay. This one. Ace of Swords
Oh,
reverse.
Oh, do you want me to do Biddy for
Yeah,
you?
give me some biddy.
Okay.
I'll do Labyrinth.
This one we got last week, didn't we?
Did we?
I think we
Did we get King of Swords?
No, we got, I'm pretty sure the hand with the cloud was coming out.
I thought it was the Ace of Cups reverse.
Well, first of all, Katie, what was your intention when you pulled this card?
My intention was, what do I need to cultivate within myself in order to have confidence that I will stick to this decision?
Interesting. The Ace of Swords reversed indicates that a new idea or breakthrough is emerging from within you, but you are not willing to share it with others just yet. Interesting. You may still be exploring what this means for you and how to best express and manifest it in the external world. You may also seek greater clarity about whether this is an idea you wish to pursue more fully, perhaps because you are unsure if it will bring the results you truly desire. I think the deck was just like, here's the situation.
Here you go, bitch. Oh my god.
Okay. Well,
Receiving the Ace of Swords in reverse could indicate that one's thoughts are jumbled, uncertain, and extremely chaotic.
Yep.
yeah.
Making decisions at this time would be unwise because you aren't sure what you should be doing, and there's a good probability that you will make a mistake. But luckily, me and Wallace is here to tell you what to do, so problem solved.
That's true. That's true.
So you didn't have to make the decision, Katie. We did.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
All right. Are people ready to get into a sprint? And then when we come back, Stieg and Katie will both pick a person who they want to troubleshoot their problem, and I'll do the same.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
you guys just put in the private chat who you're doing so we don't all pick the same person by accident.
Okay.
Okay.
That'd be embarrassing.
Right? Well, I think it'd be fine. I think we'd survive it. All right. Let's not talk magic systems. Okay. Here we go.
Why are you trying to pick my pocket?
Happy sprinting, friends.
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
No.
We get a focus.
Focus.
Hello? Hello, sir?
Hello.
There you go. This is a
There we
Wendy's.
are. This is a Wendy's. Hello and welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you so much. How did you do for that sprint, Catherine?
I did well. I started researching some Belgian scandals because I love doing that. And started reading this article about that. And then, but before that, I wrote kind of an essay. Not an essay. I wrote like a lot of paragraphs about how I'm going to troubleshoot someone. So get ready.
Bang, bang. She
Bang,
shot them
bang.
down.
Got a lot of advice. I don't know if any of it's helpful, but
And I watched that reaction video of that guy reacting to Guts. There
what
you
did
go.
he think? How was he?
I'm only halfway through, and he loves it so far. He was a huge fan of Sour, and I generally just agree with his music like reactions. So I'm excited.
I love this.
Yeah, they got all the way to what's currently playing here. They got all the way to Get Him Back. Yeah,
So good.
just finished Logical, and it's just every time he just also did Lazy, and every time I listen to Lazy, I just the pain.
Oh my god, Lacey is just—it's too relatable as a queer woman. It's too relatable.
It's not relatable in terms of like relatability, which is what relatable means in English. For me,
In case
I
you
just
didn't know.
in case you didn't know, Catherine, with her English major in history. Nope, your major in English literature. There you go.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just the narrative and the song and like how the song's shifting from kind of like I basically feel it's like what's that song from? Hey Alexa, play Jealousy, 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 Jealousy. There you go.
Here we go.
I kind of feel because Jealousy is very like outward in its like angriness. But I feel like Lazy is the reverse of that, where it's just like the internal anger for loving someone that you can't have for some reason that kind of makes you despise them, and it's just it's so good. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Chop, friends. Sorry.
Got a little into it.
But yeah, loving that so far. And then I also took some notes for someone I'm going to troubleshoot. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the person Katie Caffeine will troubleshoot.
Ooh, hold on. Let me pull up their comment. Oh god, where are they? Ooh, there we go. I chose Neon Moon. Hi, Neon Moon. Welcome to the stage. You're about to get.
Moon, I choose you.
I choose you. Pokeball. Got to catch all the Neon Moons. Neon Moon
Chop, Kitty.
is struggling with getting more interested in world building than having my characters, grow as people and do stuff. How do people who really love world building balance this? So I have several questions to think about. Neon Moon, you can answer them if you wish. Also, apparently you. What is your goal? Do you just like building out worlds? Because if that is true, I would say maybe consider being like a D&D game master. I think they just like build out the worlds. And like, obviously they do some character stuff too, like creating NPCs or whatever. But you can create your world and not necessarily have to like write it. And like your players will be the characters within the world and they'll have their own work creating their characters. And like, you don't have to do that work. You don't have to be, you can be interested in them, but as like an observer more. I've never been a game master though, so maybe that's wrong, but that's a suggestion.
I think they're specifically asking like that, how to get more interested in world building. Struggling with getting more interested in world building, comma, than having my characters, grow as people and stuff. Oh, you're more interested in the world building, or are you more interested? Okay.
I took it as more interested in.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right. So continue as you were.
If I've misinterpreted it, sorry.
LOL, I actually used to be a DM, so.
There we go. Yay, look at that. But if you want to publish a book, here's my suggestion. Think about what you love about world building. And world building, you have to do something with the world building in case you, unless you just want to build out worlds for the fun of it. And that's totally valid too. But if you want to write books, I would say think about the intersection of the world and its people. Your world will deeply affect your characters, but your characters will also deeply affect the world. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So how do these affect each other and how can you play with that? a good question to ask yourself when you're thinking about this is, what parts of the world are you most excited by? Is it like a set piece? Is it like a monarchy? Is it a big bad? Is it a magic system? Whatever. And how do your characters interact with this and react with it? And how will it further the story? So anyway, that's questions you can ask yourself. If you build out big worlds, this is a caveat basically, and aren't interested in characters, how then are you telling the story? Perhaps you want to do like a make your narrative non-traditional. Like you can have like inanimate objects telling a story and like showing the way the world has changed. Like that's you can do that instead of having it be character focused, or like you can have it be plot focused instead, like use non-traditional things. I know this is a contemporary example, but there's a book called A Little Something Different by Sandy Hall, where like there's many POVs, and like one of them is like a squirrel and one of them's like a bench, and they use those characters to tell someone's love story and like different angles of a love story. So my example, and what I wrote a lot about, is look at pieces of media with large worlds. The one that I thought of immediately is Lord of the Rings by Tolkien, specifically the movies. But Tolkien's world would be nothing without the characters that play out in the world. Like he can have this really expansive world with all this cool stuff and things, but he uses his characters to further not only like, the character arcs and stuff, but also like the theming and the thematics of the book and like the dynamics. Like Gollum is very affected by the world and the magic system because he found the ring, and that really like changed him as a person. But like he was really changed by the ring because of who he was to begin with, because he was super jealous of his cousin who found the ring first. Spoiler alert, and got the ring.
It has been published in
1940. So. Whoops. Specifically, though, the one that I'm always fascinated by is the father-son dynamics between Faramir, Boromir, and Denethor. So good. And these dynamics are played out within the world and are enhanced by the world. So if you think about Boromir, his main theme is that he wants to be a hero. This ends up getting him killed. He sacrificed, he has this like big idea of what being a hero is, but then he has to sacrifice himself to save the other characters because he's grown to love them more than this idea of being a hero and stuff. And like, he's not going to be the hero ultimately, but he is heroic in his last act. And then because of this, Denethor is left without his golden child, his oldest son. And so that leaves him in this position where he resents Faramir, the one who was left behind, who, is now his heir. And Faramir then in turn has to become the hero to get his father's approval, and goes on this suicide mission to fight the orcs and stop them from reaching Gondor. And this is held by both the fact that he wants to protect his people, because that's what he's been brought up to do as well, as like the son of a steward of Gondor. Like his job is to protect the people of Gondor. But also internally, he needs his father's approval. It's like, that's like something he craves. And then that's completely, contrasted by how Denethor is portrayed as this gluttonous, full of rot, evil man who sits on his like golden or white throne, eating fucking cherries and being all disgusting, while his son goes off and dies, doesn't actually die, but like you think he would be dying. So anyway, character relationships are fundamental to stories, and thinking about those relationships and those dynamics and how they would play out in this world that you've created, I think could make your characters more interesting to you ultimately, and definitely more interesting to your readers as well. And so bringing in that world building that you love, figuring out how does this world affect the characters, because like Denethor is in a position of power, what he has responsibilities, he's not doing them. That makes him a villain or an antagonist. Faramir doesn't want to do these things, but has to do these things because his brother's no longer here, and he's also looking for his father's approval. So all these things kind of wrap together in your world and will hopefully be more interesting, so that you actually like can explore the world that you've created, but also be interested in your characters as well. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Wow, that was college level advice.
She has a college degree, baby.
He was giving a presentation.
She said, here's my essay. Boom, baby. There you go.
Yeah. I think that was great advice. I do agree that a world is nothing without its characters, just as a character is nothing without its world. Yeah. Nothing exists in a vacuum. I I also think, because that's something I struggle with, not struggle. Well, I do struggle with it, but like I struggled where I like have all these ideas of a world, and then I'm kind of like what now?
Yeah.
So I really found joy in finding moments for my characters to interact with the world
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out how the culmination of the world at the time my story starts, how that affects the characters where they are now.
Yes.
So
that's good advice too.
yeah, so like my current project is like a royal story. So like the entire lineage and basically the creation of the world boils down to this one character in this one moment in time, and kind of yeah, it's like distilled, like the entire world is distilled down to this one character, which puts a lot of pressure on a character. So like, how would that look? Like, how would that look in a person? Like, what would you, Neon Moon, do if you like had Faramir's burdens and like
Mhm.
Denethor's expectations and your own expectations and disappointments? Like, how would you affect? How would the world affect you in that way? I really thought that was helpful when I sat down to like kind of carve out my characters. I think I just repeated what Katie said there, but
Still,
you know,
I mean, if you needed it said another way, there you go. Sometimes that helps.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's great advice. Also, I thought Marlon had a solid advice. Just give yourself a time slot where you get to work on the world, and when that's done, you know, you did that thing, and then you get to work on this other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Marlon says,
Yeah.
that she set aside 1 month to spend on the world, and then set that aside to focus only on the characters. And I think also what helped for me was realizing, or not realizing, because I already knew this, but kind of manifesting that you only need so much world building that you can start the story,
Yeah.
and then the rest you can just plot in as you go. Interesting take. The world is as almost another character that influences the people. That is my kind of favorite world building,
Mm-hmm.
because your characters, would be nothing without the world they're building in. So you should make
Yeah.
the world interesting naturally. But
Exactly.
then also, like, why are you building a world if not for your characters to tear it all down and burn it to the ground?
Yeah. And like, are you interested more in like, because like worlds change and stuff, and like, so what is changing within the world? Like maybe you have like this giant climate disaster or something, and so like how would people be affected by that? Like how would your world change if certain things happened? And then if you find something that's interesting to you, like work backwards and be like, okay, well, how would people react to this? Like, I mean, if you want to go like dystopian, or like maybe you have like a revolutionary moment, like one of the reasons why some stories are so enduring is because of how characters react to real world scenarios. I mean, I've never read Les Mis, but like, Les Mis isn't about like the royals that are happening. It's about the common people and how they react to this and how their own day-to-day lives are affected by it. And like, history isn't just the most powerful people. Often history is like, the everyday people who have to like live their lives, and like finding interesting ways to like pull in and see how their lives would be affected. So anyway.
Yeah. So I think focusing on like getting enough world building done so you can start your story, and then the rest can come later.
Yeah. Exactly.
And like, as we've said so many times, nothing is set in stone.
Yep.
Wallace.
That soundtrack of Notre Dame, which we found out is much darker than than the Disney somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how does your character affect your world, and how does your world affect characters? Could be like something to keep in mind to get yourself more interested in the characters.
Yeah. So yeah.
Hope that helps. Hope this email found you well.
Hope finds you well. That's my TED Talk.
Yeah. And people have given some advice in chat so absolutely check that out, Neon Moon. And I hope that give you a little bit of inspiration to get to know your characters better.
Yeah. You're very welcome.
Very welcome. As we are some kind of authority, we are not an authority. Just we are, we are a post-it note at a bus stop.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I have an English degree, so I might as well use it for something.
Yeah, Katie has some credentials. I have 0. So yeah.
Oh my god, Blue's eating a hair thing.
I I'm going to troubleshoot Lisa. I don't know if Lisa is still here, but if you are Lisa, first of all, I'm obsessed with the way your like messages sound because it's just giving Italian or Irish. Uh,
My
and
current
I just
problem.
current problem. That was Scottish-ish,
It's
vaguely.
you're trying to go dairy girl. And
What's Lisa said, my current problem is that I have a lot of mental blocks around my writing. Like, I get hung up on weird things like, is it unethical to randomly generate characters in The Sims for my stories, etc.? I don't think that specifically is unethical. I use a lot of methods for like fleshing out characters and names, and I think as long as they help you, they're valid. Unless you're like going into police records or hospital records and just pulling straight up names, in which case probably don't do that.
yeah.
So I don't think anything is unethical. I do think that I also struggle a lot with this, Lisa, where I have a lot of random thoughts that kind of block my writing, but I always tell myself, well, I try to tell myself that that is a problem for Future Steeg, because Future Steeg is a much more capable writer than I am. So yeah, maybe like in terms of strategies, I don't know how far you are in your draft, but I also try to tell myself like the only purpose of this text is to tell myself the story. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it's not. Oh my god, people have done that though. I was listening to the Office podcast and some of the background characters' names were based off names in hospital records.
Yeah.
I don't mind like gravestones and stuff, or like if you see a
Graves.
name as like a private person, you can do it. But like if you're a doctor and then you pull names from your medical journal, maybe not do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I think it's a big deal if the person is alive or on the live. Lisa's second follow-up was, secondarily, I have a hard time keeping plots going. I always start as a pantser, then I run out of mental imagery to use and end up struggling to continue the story. Dealer's choice. What strategy? Well, Sleeza, did you meet the right guy? Because I'm a big advocate for structure and storytelling. I don't know if you've read Save the Cat or any kind of structured book. Save the Cat is like on the more in-depth spectrum of story structure. But definitely, I think you should look up some structure literature. I have some recommendations for you. One is obviously Save the Cat if you want to go full balls to the walls in-depth study. There's also a bunch of articles online. I can't remember who wrote them, but it's essentially the same as Save the Cat, but instead of speaking about the entirety of structures, like the 21 beats or whatever it is, it breaks down 5 essential beats. So that might be a bit more palpable if you're not a structure girly. Additionally, there's this book called Take Off Your Pants by Libba Hawk. That is kind of structure, but in the point of view of a pantser, which sounds like that might be up to your standards and liking. There you go. So definitely check those out. But I think if you have a lot of imagery and like you have a lot of visuals and you write that and then you run out of steam, that tells me that you should maybe dive into some structure, figure out how you can take that imagery and put it in the context of, a middle, a beginning, or an end. So particularly the easiest one is probably the 5 beats, where you have to figure out what's your inciting incident, what's your midpoint, what's your break, what's the shift from Act 1 to 2, and what's the shift from Act 2 to 3, and then what's your ending. And if you have those kind of lampposts, whatever, to drive by, then there's a lot of story in between you can kind of just discover as you write, if that's what you prefer. And then, you'll just start your story with the imagery, but you know that, okay, you're going towards this climax, so obviously whatever I'm writing now has to kind of culminate in that climax. And then from the climax, everything that happened now has to have a reaction and a reaction and an action. And that gets me towards this beat between Act 1 and 2 that I've thought up. And that gets me towards the midpoint, and that gets me towards the end, which is kind of how I write, because I plan out big plot points and then I just try and find a path in between them. So yeah, that's that's three degrees of structure you can kind of look up. The 5 plot beats. I think it's called 5 essential plot beats, basically.
Yeah.
That's kind of the lighter version. And then intermediate is Take Off Your Pants by Libba Hawking. And then the advanced. No, it's not advanced. It's actually super simple. But like the more extreme plotting would be Save the Cat by Jane Brody. Is that her name?
No idea.
I have the book here. I could have just looked at it. Yeah. Jessica Brody. Yeah, Save the Cat by Jessica Brody. I have both versions. This is the young adult. If you're writing a young adult novel, I recommend this. But it talks really in depth about structure, and I'll see if I can find some. Yeah, it gives you basically an overview over how you can plan your novel.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, you know what structure is. But yeah, if you're struggling to find a path through your novel, I recommend checking out Structure. It's Lisa.
Good idea. I will also say with structure, something that helps me is like, I mean, it's hard to find comp titles, but finding a comp title and like plotting out what their beats are, like basically reverse outlining someone else's book and seeing where all of those things are. I specifically do this with movies just because it's easier, because it's 2 hours and it's, you know, it's less time to like consume the story. And that also could possibly help with like finding other places to like draw inspiration of like what, you know, because if you're struggling with like finding like how to continue the story, how do other people do it, basically, you know, but the best part is feel.
Yeah, and like if you like, oh, I don't know what a midpoint is, or I don't know what a climax is, then Save the Cat also breaks down like in detail, in depth, like what does a midpoint mean for a story.
Yeah.
It also uses a lot of examples. It also uses a lot of examples for like, you know, I think this one has Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and a bunch of other books that she breaks down to see like, okay, what is the midpoint of the Hunger Games? What is the midpoint of I think it also had The Hate You Give, which made me really interested to read The Hate You Give, so I'm going to read that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she breaks down like different genres and different books and looks at, okay, what does the midpoint mean for this story? And then maybe you can transfer that over to your own story. I thought you'd cut a bob now off camera, Wallace. I was shaking. I was like, girly pop is going through it.
In that sprint, I cut myself a bob.
I mean, that would be so iconic. That would,
really
be,
would be
truly like, oh yeah, I'm just cut off a billion inches of my hair.
I did leave my decision to get bangs up to a vote on this Sprints and Shoptalk. So
call in. Should Wallace get a bob?
No, I love my luscious locks.
But yeah, if you're here, I hope that helps, Lisa. Also, feel free to ask any questions.
Pre-like haircut.
Yeah, and to the one, yeah.
Thank you both so much for people. I was having a printer emergency, and so Katie and Stig pulled off their professional co-hosting responsibilities with flourish and aplomb. Okay. I will be looking at Vicky, who says, dealer's choice, logical or emotional solution, stuck planning instead of drafting because I know how bad my first draft words are after thousands of hours spent learning storytelling rules and conventions. So given this is what I'm thinking. You are someone who is, as you say yourself, you are highly educated in all of the ways everyone has said stories should be told, right? I'm sure you've read lots of craft books. I'm sure you've watched all the videos, read all the articles, maybe you have a degree. I don't know your history. First of all, I think this is definitely coming from a place of fear of that idea of why can't I write a perfect first draft, which is something that the three of us have talked about all the time.
Yep. Since
you are, I'm actually going to not do logical or emotional. I'm going to give you a creative oriented goal. But I feel like it's logical. I think it's a logical thing to do. And since you're so well versed in all of the rules and conventions, I think you should take a week where every day you sit down for like 15 to 30 minutes, and your goal for the day is to write a small little vignette where you intentionally subvert or break rules and goals. I think earlier, Vicky, you were talking about how one of your favorite times in your life writing was when you were younger, and you would write like 10,000 words of people walking to school and nothing happened. And it was just, people talking, which is, as someone who has written an entire novel that you could boil it down to just two people talking, I get it. I get the power in that writing, and then the satisfaction that can have for the author as it like helps you work through stuff, right? So I'm saying do that. Intentionally choose to one day to write a story that has no plot. It's just two characters talking. I've never seen the play Waiting for Godot, but give it that vibe, literally just two people talking. Okay. Write a story that, memento style, like starts at the end and then like works its way backwards until you get to the beginning. Write a story with horrible grammar intentionally, and think about the character who's writing the story and why they have bad grammar. Like you don't need to do these specific things. I'm just giving you examples because I think where you are right now is you are so conditioning in yourself rules that you have to follow. And I think that if you give yourself permission to break those rules, it's going to make, just writing to write so much easier because you've intentionally broken those rules. After this week, the hope is then you can just go back to your normal standard of writing with the understanding that rules are there to be broken and that you don't need a perfect first draft. And I had another thought too. I don't know. Either of you guys have thoughts on this?
My initial thought is one that I always tell myself, and I try to live by, but I don't always. But it is that I'm telling the first draft to myself. So knowing that unless I want to, and no one ever will have to see this draft. Like no one will know how shitty of a writer I feel like, and no one will know that I don't know how to spell, interchangeable. Just me and Google will keep that secret. And I feel like Google is very good with secrets. So I think that telling yourself and allowing yourself to that, okay, I know that this is bad, and I intentionally am making it bad because it's just the first draft and it's just for me. Point number 2 is that if you're like me, love editing, then editing a blank page is very difficult.
Yes.
But editing a page that sucks, can I work that out because I know how to fix it. Like I know the rules, I know the grammar, I know how to show don't tell, I know all of these things, and having a bad page is so easy to fix because I know how to fix it. But fixing something that doesn't exist yet, that just exists in your brain, is so difficult.
Yes. Yep.
I try to allow myself, I don't always follow this, but I do try to allow myself to write poorly and kind of get over the fact that, this is just me telling the story. And then once the story is out there, I know that I'm a very capable person and I am able to change this into something else.
Yeah.
So I think, try and get into that mindset.
Yeah. And remember that creativity is made up of a lot of different muscles, and maybe a muscle, it's just you need to exercise the muscle of free form writing, right? I think you focus so much on informing yourself about the standards, which are good to know, very good to know. I think that a lot of people could get a lot of benefit out of being very familiar with what are the expectations for writing in modern culture, right? Like, because that's helpful to know, but it can be paralyzing if you feel completely constrained by that. And so you need to exercise the muscle in your creative mind that allows you to ignore those rules. And I think by doing this exercise of intentionally breaking them, being an intentional rebel, then will help you start to ignore on your first draft of just being like, let's get words on the page, and we're intentionally ignoring it. So, she says, Vicky says, I feel really atrophied in freeform writing. So that's why take a week. I'm not even giving you as long as Stieg. Stieg, it's a month because he's, it's a couple of sentences that he needs to repeat to himself every single day. For you, it's a bit of a bigger ask. It's 15 to 30 minutes every day. a new experiment each time, a new rule that you're intentionally breaking. And who knows, maybe, you write a conversation between two people in a white room with no description, with nothing. It's literally just dialogue, boom, 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 boom. And somewhere in there you find a creative spark, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
and if you don't, you don't, and that's fine, but you're still exercising that muscle, which is what we're trying to get you to do. My pumpkin bread.
And I also think, honestly, maybe affirmations will work for Vicky too, because I feel like we share a lot of the a lot of the same, common denominator. There you go. Like, just tell yourself, like, whenever you feel like you're wasting away on your draft, or like whenever you think about that, just tell yourself, I know it is bad, and I also know how to fix it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I said, it's easier to fix a document that exists on a page than to fix something that's in your brain and not tangible. And the good news is that you are very capable, Vicky. You have extreme amount of knowledge about how to form sentences, like the rules and ins and outs, the workings of writing. You know how to do this, and you got this. And, all you have to do is just get that words on the page, and then you get to actually work on it.
Yeah. And it's okay to feel silly. I think that's like one thing that's important to acknowledge when you're doing stuff like that.
I have to talk to myself, Vicky. So
yeah. And just as a point of homework, Vicky, if you happen to be at the stream at the next Sprints and Shop Talk, I'm going to open up the stream with whatever the topic ends up being. I'll still have, before we do our first sprint, I'll ask people to check in over their troubleshooting experiments. So if you want to use that as a piece of accountability to make sure that you get your weekend, and that way you can let us know. Or if you'd rather do something different, you can join our Discord if you're not already in the Discord. And we have a section where people can share their writing. It's called the Fiction Section. It's a library-themed Discord for anybody who doesn't know. I'm very proud of it. And one of the sections is the Fiction Section. If you would like to share the things that you write during this rule-breaking experiment, and you can just just say, like, before you share the pieces, just say, I've been trying to break rules intentionally this week. These are really shitty pieces, or hey, this one was actually kind of fun, or da-da-da. Feel free to share if you think that would be a helpful way of inspiring you. So thank you everybody for coming. I'm sorry I have to cut this one short. I'm about to run off to the airport.
I have been looking through all the comments, and a lot of them can cherry pick advices from the troubleshooting we've already done. So everybody keep the conversation rolling. Take it to the cafe and the Discord. Keep everybody's been really great today.
I have a quick question though.
Yeah.
For people. Could we change the self-help and anger management to troubleshooting, or have a troubleshooting channel?
Well, but self-help and anger management is an actual library theme.
Okay, should we have like a room called troubleshooting?
The IT
I
department
feel like
down in
it
the
would be
basement.
in the fiction section. The fiction section is where you're supposed to talk about writing. I feel like you can.
I know, but I don't know. I feel like this troubleshooting theme works better.
You can always ask for help in like the writing room or reading room or the fiction section.
Fair enough.
Grievously great. I very rarely do this, but I actually.
Oh,
slay.
Thank you, Vicky.
Grievously great. I very rarely do this, but I highly, highly recommend you go back from the start and do this, because I feel like we've been having a really great conversation today. We've talked about a lot of different strategies for getting over various different writing problems, and maybe you'll connect with some of them. But again, I'm going to cut it there. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to Katie and Stieg. I felt like this was a fabulous conversation, a very good Sprints and Shop Talk, if I do say so myself.
One for the books.
Have a great rest of your week. And this is our last time doing our 2023 outro summer in the summer. We might use it again, but this is the last time we do it in summer because the first day of fall is quickly approaching.
I'm making a fall one, besties.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Don't forget to join the Discord.
Remember that time Wallace was in high school?